You know this story. The queen who killed her husband when he came home from war. The adulteress. The schemer. The woman who used a red cloth to trap him in the bath and struck him down with an axe. The mother whose son would later kill her in revenge. The villain of the Oresteia. Clytemnestra. The queen of Mycenae. The woman whose name has meant murderous treachery and female violence for 3,000 years. You know it like this. Clytemnestra rules Mycenae in her husband Agamemnon's absence while he fights the Trojan War. She takes a lover, Aeschylus, her husband's cousin and enemy. When Agamemnon returns after 10 years, she welcomes him with honor, leads him inside, and kills him in his bath. She is later killed by her own son, Orestes, who is acquitted of matricide by Athena at Athens. Clytemnestra is the monster whose death establishes civilization. That is the story Aeschylus tells. Now let me tell you what Aeschylus includes in that same play, in his own text. That the popular reading of Clytemnestra almost always omits. Before the Trojan War started, before she took a lover, before the 10-year wait, before the axe, Agamemnon sacrificed their daughter. The Greek fleet was assembled at Aulis, ready to sail for Troy. The winds would not come. The seer Calchas told Agamemnon why. The goddess Artemis was angry. The fleet could not sail until Agamemnon made an offering. The offering required was his eldest daughter, Iphigenia. Agamemnon sent a message to Clytemnestra at Mycenae. He told her that Iphigenia was to be married to the hero Achilles. It was an honor. She should send the girl to Aulis for the wedding. Clytemnestra sent her daughter. There was no wedding. Iphigenia was brought to the altar and killed. Her throat was cut. Her blood ran into the earth at Aulis, and the winds came and the fleet sailed for Troy. Agamemnon made this choice. He had options. Other commanders refused similar demands. Other myths record different responses to divine ultimatums. He chose to kill his daughter. He chose the war over his child. And then he sailed away, and Clytemnestra was left in Mycenae, knowing what had happened to the daughter she had sent in good faith to a wedding that never existed. Clytemnestra ruled Mycenae for 10 years. The plays and the tradition tell us she took a lover, Aeschylus, and that this is evidence of her faithlessness. But consider what the 10 years actually were for her. She knew her husband had lied to her, had used her trust to get their daughter to a place where she could be killed, had murdered Iphigenia for the sake of military advantage, and had then sailed away to a war that was being fought for another man's wife. She had 3 remaining children to raise and a kingdom to administer alone. She did both. Aeschylus was Agamemnon's cousin and his enemy for reasons that go back to their family's terrible history together. That Clytemnestra allied with Agamemnon's enemy is presented as betrayal. But what loyalty did she owe a man who had killed her child? The ancient world had no framework for a wife who refused to accept what her husband had done. There was no court she could appeal to, no law that covered it. A husband's authority over his household, including his children, was absolute. She had no recourse. She had only time. So she waited. She ruled well. She planned. This is the most important part of the story, because it changes everything about how Clytemnestra is read. In the Agamemnon, the first play of the Oresteia, Aeschylus gives Clytemnestra a speech after she kills Agamemnon. It is one of the most remarkable speeches in ancient drama. She does not hide what she did. She does not apologize. She stands over her husband's body and justifies it. She says, "I stand here where I struck. The deed is done. I do not deny it. He could not run away from or ward off his death. I cast my dragnet around him, the rich robe, and struck him twice, and with 2 cries his limbs went slack. As he lay there, I gave him a 3rd blow, a votive gift to Zeus of the underworld, guardian of the dead." And then she says this: "This man filled our cup with evil deeds. Returning home, he found awaiting him the daughter he had slaughtered, the darling of my womb." She names Iphigenia in the speech, in the play, in Aeschylus. The playwright who is supposed to be condemning her puts the justification in her mouth, and it is not a weak justification. It is specific. It is personal. It names the exact crime. "You killed our daughter. Now you are dead." The Oresteia ends with a trial. Orestes, who has killed Clytemnestra for killing Agamemnon, is tried in Athens before a jury of citizens, with Athena presiding. The jury is tied. Athena casts the deciding vote to acquit Orestes. Her reasoning: the mother is not the true parent. She is only the vessel. The father is the true parent. Therefore, killing a mother for killing a father is justified. This is the founding argument of Athenian civic justice, and it rests on the explicit devaluation of the maternal bond. Consider what the trial is actually deciding. A man killed his daughter to start a war. His wife killed him for it. His son killed his wife for that. The son is acquitted. The woman who killed a man who killed her child is the villain. The man who killed his daughter in the first place is the victim. This is the justice that Athens enshrined as civilization. The scholar Froma Zeitlin, one of the leading scholars of Greek tragedy, documented how the Oresteia is fundamentally a text about the subordination of female justice to male institutional order. Clytemnestra's claim that a mother has the right to avenge her murdered child is precisely what is being tried and rejected. Not because it is wrong, because allowing it to stand would give women a form of legitimate power the Athenian civic order could not accommodate. Clytemnestra is one of the most powerful figures in ancient Greek literature. She appears in Homer, in Aeschylus, in Sophocles, in Euripides. Every playwright who touched the story gave her complexity, intelligence, and a case that the tradition then worked hard to suppress. She is never simply wrong. She is always, at minimum, responding to something that was done to her first. In Euripides' Electra, Clytemnestra herself acknowledges that if Agamemnon had sacrificed Iphigenia for the survival of the city, if all of Argos had been at stake, she might have borne it. But he killed her daughter for Menelaus, for his brother, for another man's stolen wife. He chose Menelaus's pride over Iphigenia's life. And even Euripides, in the same play, does not fully vindicate her. He shows her as someone who let the justice of her original grievance curdle into something uglier, someone who compounded real injury with calculated cruelty. She was not simply a hero. She was a human being who had been given an unbearable situation and responded with everything she had. What she had was considerable: intelligence, authority, patience, and the knowledge of exactly what had been done to her. The story of Clytemnestra has been told for 3,000 years as the story of the murderous queen, the unfaithful wife, the woman whose violence against her husband established the need for male institutional justice to contain female rage. The actual texts, including the one that is supposed to condemn her, tell a different story. A mother whose daughter was killed by her husband using her own trust as the mechanism of the killing, who had no legal recourse in the world she inhabited, who waited 10 years with full knowledge of what had been done, and who then did the one thing available to her. The Greek tradition called this the founding moment of the need for civilization, the moment that proved women's justice must be subordinated to male institutional order. But what the tradition actually shows is a woman asking a question that the institution was built specifically to prevent from being answered. What happens when a man with absolute power uses it to kill his own child for personal gain? What does justice look like when the only person with the motive and the access to deliver it is the one person the system has decided cannot be trusted with it? There is a reason this resonates so deeply right now. We live in a world where systems that were built to deliver justice consistently protect those with power from those they have harmed, where the person who acts outside the system to answer an injustice the system will not address is called the criminal, where the original act disappears and only the response is visible. Agamemnon killed Iphigenia at Aulis. He is remembered as the great king who won Troy. Clytemnestra waited 10 years and killed him for it. She is remembered as the monster. He killed their daughter. She killed him for it, and they called her the villain and built civilization on that verdict. Every wall holds a story. Some walls were built to make sure justice only flows one way.